That's not the best solution. Of course, we have a lot of static site generators or SSR tooling like Nux, Next, the one I used to love a lot a few years ago, 11T. But in 2023, when I started this project, I already did a few projects with Astro, and that I will develop the new website very quickly because I used to be fully autonomous with this technology. So what is Astro? Very quickly, because yesterday I had 30 minutes and thanks, I have now 20 minutes. Astro is an open source static site generator. You build like components and you will generate a fully static HTML file. It has a good developer experience. TypeScript typings that will be generated at build time. It will make our life easier as a developer, and is highly extensible. The only thing you have to do is write some JavaScript or TypeScript code, and you can do whatever you want. And I hope we will see that during this presentation. So the website is quite easy. So we have Astro. We have a little bit of React.js because we had to reuse some. I hope React.js soon. We have Tailwind CSS for the style sheets. Why Tailwind CSS? Just because I wanted to have a real project with Tailwind CSS in order to make my own opinion. Do I like it or not? You can ask me the question later if you want. We have the website is built on GitHub Actions and deployed on a French cloud provider named OVH Cloud. So very easy as stack. Project. The big zoom tick. Just for the people that have never seen any Astro content, I will open the home page of the website. So we have in every Astro file, we have two parts, the HTML and the JavaScript. We have here the JavaScript. When we fetch some data, we have some import for some components and so on. And after that, we have some HTML where we input similar to other frameworks like React or Vue. We have some interpolation syntax. So something we knew already if you are a web developer. So we have this static website. We ship it in production. Everyone was happy. I thought that my job was done. But the week after, asked me, can I say, okay, this is not static anymore. We have to rebuild the project every time a new post is published on LinkedIn. In fact, we don't need to update the website in real time. If we wait a few hours after the publication of the post, it's okay. So what we did, we every night, I think at 1:30. So if tomorrow at 1:30 my website is built, it will fetch the data from LinkedIn from today. But I will show you how to fetch this data. In fact, with Astro, we have a easy to use but powerful API called the Content Collection API. The Content Collection API, we are able to fetch some static data from JSON, Markdown. Everything is hosted on the file system. From file systems, or from a remote API, from anything you want. And that's what we did with LinkedIn. So for example, if I try to type with only one hand, this is the Astro component that will display this vertical LinkedIn feed. We have a collection. This comes from the Astro API. We get the LinkedIn collection and we fetch the data, but where we have defined this LinkedIn collection. In fact, configure this one, I think, yeah. Here we define all the data we can reuse in all our project. And we can see here we have the LinkedIn collection. And if we have a look, this is the API we have in Astro. We use the define collection and we can define an asynchronous function that we'll use to fetch the data. We don't care about the implementation. Implementation is in another file, but you can do whatever you want. The only things you have to remember you want to reuse in your components. So for example here, if we have a look to the get LinkedIn post. No. This is just JavaScript or TypeScript code. The LinkedIn API is not the best API I ever used, but we just need to follow the documentation, get the 10 latest posts from your company, images, and so on and so on. So you just need to write some code. And if you have a look here, no, not this one, LinkedIn preview. If I have a look to the post variables, you can see here that we have the types of my data. If I use the get collection property, Astro is able to infer the types of the data I will use in my template. For example, here I know that post is an array of objects, and in this object I have some content, image ID, and art attributes, and I can use it in my template. When I talk about developer experience before, this is very good, because you don't have to read the documentation, the API, where you just write some code and you have the autocomplete behavior automatically. So, unfortunately, I'm very sad about that. I am not about to because it invalid maybe 1 hour before the talk. So come back tomorrow and we have a feed here with the 5 or 6 latest LinkedIn posts. Okay. So everyone was happy. We published the website online, and again, I thought it's done. No. This website, initially a static website, to add a blog behavior on it. The possibility to list some blog posts, to filter by category, of course, to read the blog post. Here some, not this one maybe. We have some code highlighting. We have some images. Here. Okay. So we move away from WordPress to something I thought it was the best solution, and now they ask me to implement a blog system. Okay, how can we do that? We can use headless CMS if we want, but we have to manage a new tool, to pay for a new tool. For a small company like Vadio, maybe we can write this blog post in Markdown. Astro manage Markdown as a content layer, so we can write our post directly inside the project in Markdown. But reviewing the blog post in Markdown, and for some people, this is not the best user experience we can provide for them. Install a database. Of course, it was not the solution, because we wanted to remove the database at the very first time. And I wanted to reuse a tool that was already used inside Vadio for everything else, from the human resource and get this information and display this blog post with some blog posts. We have some metadata here, the author, where this article has to be published, on which platform, and we have the blog post here. So this solution, we have two challenges. The first one is how to convert this private Notion abstract syntax tree into HTML. How we can transform this text. It's not just text. It's something like an abstract syntax tree. How we can convert this one into HTML. And the last challenge was, I don't want to duplicate this metadata in my projects. I want to sync the schema of my collection with this Notion metadata. I don't want to duplicate this information. If one day I had a new property here, I don't want to add this property in my project at the same time. I want to do it automatically. So I will start with the second challenge. We are able to generate dynamically at build time the collection schema of my Notion collection you just saw in the Notion website. So if we have a look, this one, look. We have a utility method that we can use to connect to Notion, get some information about a database. The ID of the database is in the URL of Notion. And based on the data we fetch, generate a ZOD schema. ZOD is the library we use in Astro to generate this schema. And as you can see, it's quite easy. It's just mapping between the Notion abstract syntax tree and the ZOD schema I want to enable. So for example, every time in my metadata of Notion, inside Notion, I define a property of type checkbox, I will apply this ZOD schema. Sorry, it doesn't work. Every time we have a multi-select property, I will apply another ZOD schema that will be an array of something inside ZOD. So if one day I want to manage a new kind of metadata from Notion, I just need to add one property here, and this is done. And thanks to that, when I will use my Notion loader, I have the autocomplete behavior by default, and all the data comes from Notion, and only from Notion. So it was the first challenge. The second one is how to convert the private Notion abstract syntax tree into HTML. Notion is better than LinkedIn, but yeah, it's sometimes real. But we have published a dedicated Node.js module on npm registry we can reuse in order to load content from Notion and to generate the HTML content based on the data you want to display. We have here a blog post collection. Here in this blog post collection, the only thing I did is calling a Notion loader. That's all. And this Notion loader is defined in dedicated library. And I will just show you how we are about to convert this private abstract syntax tree. We have defined a rendering process. For that, we used the module named Unified. It's a library that makes us possible to apply some middleware one after the other. The output of one middleware, the next middleware, and so on. And as you can see here, we have this pipeline defined in code. I will start with the end. We convert everything into string, and the string will display in my page. I have one processor that will download and optimize images. I have another processor that will, if we want to display some mermaid graph in our article, mermaid is something that we can draw some graphs and so on. I don't know if you know this tool, but we can use this processor. We can do some code highlighting, but the most important one is the first one. How to convert every block in Notion into HTML code. And again, it's just a map. We have created, for each kind of block we have in Notion, a generator of HTML. For example, here, if I write a quote block in Notion, my process will execute this parse quote processor that will do something like that. This is ugly. I know. This is very ugly. I'm sorry about that. But at that time, it was only solution. I hope one day to be able to call JSX here, to write JSX code in this part of my code. But right now in Astro, it's not possible to use JSX in the build process. We can use JSX inside, but we can, at that time, we cannot use JSX in the build process. Every time we use a quote Notion block, we will generate an HTML block quote tag with the class quote, CSS class, sorry, quote, with some children. This is the first example. Another example, if I use the list Notion block, I will generate a UL, LI with a white CSS class, and that's all. And at the end, with Unify, everything will be stringified and it will be inserted in my page. Of course, all this CSS class is CSS class that we have implemented on your own in a CSS style sheet. So you can do whatever you want, in fact. You can style every Notion block in the way you want. Some code, you can connect Astro with anything you want. So how we can use this loader? If we have a look, and I will finish with that. Website, no, SRC, pages, blog, articles, slug, this one. We fetch all our data from the collection blog posts, and thanks to the Astro render method, we are able to generate this HTML content that we will be able to insert anywhere we want into our HTML. And I think the content is here. So this is the most challenging part of our migration from WordPress to Astro. It was this blog post. We did some other things we can talk later or at the pub if you want. Posts and so on. So we can talk about that if you want. Last thing, I wrote some blog posts just for tonight about the two modules we have published on the registry, the NPM registry. So the first one is Notion database Astro. So, the loader we can use in an Astro project in order to fetch some data from Notion. And we have another module that is just for the schema, the Notion database-zod, if you want to get the zod schema from a Notion database. So you can have a look to these two blog posts if you want to reuse them or build something else if you want. That's it for you for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. That was quite interesting. I've worked with Astro and WordPress before, and it's quite. Yeah. Any questions, Jamie?
So I've used Astro a bit in the past. Yeah, it's good. So in fact, the EdinburghJS website is in Astro. One of framework, I guess, is that before Astro, I used Gatsby and static site generator, and there was a kind of roughly the same arguments put forward for it that. And WordPress has been around for a long time. I guess, like, how do you approach the kind of the balance between, say, thinking, oh, I'm going to the longevity of it compared to, say, a WordPress project?
The main purpose is that at that time we don't have any knowledge about WordPress. So if we have to update the time easier and quicker to migrate. And I know that in this company, I work for them as a freelancer. They have a lot of JavaScript or TypeScript developer. So I know that if one day they have to update something, it's very easy to do because they are, next year Astro is down, maybe, we will see. So it's the same. WordPress is Astro. So you have to try to write the code in a way that is not linked to the technology. So if one day Astro is down and you have to migrate to something else, you still have your business logic. You can reuse it everywhere. You can.
Switched off again. Hello?
I can.
Hello.
Yeah.
There we go. The middleware sorter, was it unified?
Unified, yeah.
Is that work? Is that just an Astro thing, or is it
No,
available everywhere?
You can use it
Next.js.
anywhere you want. It's a dedicated module from NPM registry. I think Astro we use in code, but you can use.
Hi, I have a question. How did you get on Wind?
I'm like an old guy when we're talking about web development. So I like writing HTML and CSS. Having this kind of weird CSS class is not my way of thinking. But I did it in order to have my own opinion. Oh. But every time I talk about Tailwind, I say, oh, it's bad, but I never use it, so that's why. If you prefer.
I know that Notion has a lot of different content types.
Blogs we can use in a blog post. If one day we have to manage something new, we will implement the code and that's it. That we did before. In what we have to publish a video, the video blogs was not available in my Notion, my Astro process, so we have implemented the code. It was just 5 lines of code, and that's all.
What has it been like for the npm package you published with your custom parser for Notion?
I hope I understand well the question. Well, so we published the 2 libraries quite late in the process. We published it, I think, 1 month ago. Even if project, I think we finished the project 6 months ago, but as I knew these 2 libraries, published some blog post about that. So I just did it. For now, we didn't do some communication about that on social media, so no user for now. But we did this talk it was this year in March in France, and we had some guys that was saying to us, "Oh, it would be great to have this part of your code in dedicated library so we can reuse it," and that's why we did it.
It's a great talk.
Thank you.
Another. Cool. This mic is not working out. Anyways, there we go. Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. It's a great talk. I'll have Jamie on for a little bit to has something to shout out.
Cheers. So hey, to people I don't know, I'm Jamie. I'm the organizer of EdinburghJS and GlasgowJS, and also listing all the events that I can find in Scotland to do with tech, programming, anything. People here write blog posts and do video, feature them. So it's basically anyone in Scotland who does sort of tech stuff or coding stuff, try and give them a shout out. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, scan the QR code on the banner, sign up for the email list. If you don't want the email list, we also run a Discord server. There's probably about 700 or 800 people now. There's a jobs channel for contribute to the meetups at all. Of course, we've got a sponsor as TravelPerk, but we have some other costs like the email server and the meetup costs. If you want to contribute a couple of pounds a month, do that via the website as well. I know we're very grateful for support. Without people in the community supporting the meetup, we just wouldn't be able to run events like this. And I think it's good to get out and meet other JavaScript developers. The last thing is, if you want to do what Manu just did and minute talk, you can do a 5-minute, this is something I built kind of talk. Whatever works for you, I'd like to make the event work for you. If you're interested in that, just come up to me after and give me a shout or catch me in the Discord server. That's it. Cheers.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just want to give another shout out to TravelPerk. Thank you for hosting us. They are QR code, but it's gone now, but it's just travelperk.com/careers. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Jamie, for organizing this.